Hi everyone, Labas Vakaras. Thanks for coming this evening. Such a nice weather. You're missing it probably, but the fact that you made it here says that you value the topic that is there for today. This meetup will probably the last meetup for the season before we wrap up and meet up again somewhere in autumn around September. And yeah, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Kranthi. uh, I I am from Beyond Analysis. I work as a data scientist there. So we have a great lineup of talks for today. But before we go ahead and mention about all the talks, I just wanted to update you on one of the recent changes that were brought in the website of AI Lithuania. Now you will be able to see a new section called current projects that shows a project tracker. The projects shown here are the projects the board is involved with. So it is open for everyone to see, and you'll be able to track the progress of things going on at AI Lithuania. So without spending much time on this, I would want to go ahead and tell you a bit about the topics that are coming up for the evening. There will be one talk given by Davidas regarding Aya. There will be a talk by Miglė and Rūta regarding equality, diversity, and what does it have to do with AI. And there will be a talk by Karolina on diversity-driven AI, building an inclusive future. And after that, we will have a panel discussion. And after the panel discussion, there will be a chance for networking and there will be pizzas. So that should be a reason enough to stay back for networking. Now, I would want to go ahead and invite Davidas to talk about Aya.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Davidas. It's not working. Yeah, so I want to talk today about Aya. So Aya is the open source initiative. So basically today we're talking about diversity, and Aya project is also about diversity, but like different kinds. You know, like most machine learning models, and especially NLP, is like created for English because you have like these data sets and everything. So the main purpose of Aya is to create like multilingual instructional model for more than 100 language, and Lithuanian is included. So it's like very nice. So I am a European lead for Aya project, and yeah, I want to introduce you a little bit more. So this project is like, if someone non-technical, it's like very similar to ChatGPT and how ChatGPT is working. So, but we want to that all languages can contribute to this initiative and create like something open source. So everything from data sets, model weights will be open source for everyone if you want to use it. And we also want to encourage everyone to collaborate in this project. So this project started like in December this year by like senior scientists of Cohere for AI. So Cohere for AI, if you don't know, it's like open research community who's like contributing for research in different languages, mostly in NLP. And yeah, so we want to attract like more than 100 countries to collaborate with this project. And yeah, so so we have like 4 regions, and I'm one of the region leads. So this is other region leads. So we have like from Europe, Dominic is from Cambridge, Shubalika is from Asia, and Shiloh from Africa. And yeah, so we have like most important thing, we have a sprint next weekend. So we want, if you know like some language, also Lithuanian included, and you want to contribute to this project, everyone's welcome. So I can briefly introduce how we can do it. So this is like, we created a UI that people would be easy to contribute. Basically, there are two tasks. One is like on prompts and completions. And the first one, we have like a lot of data sets. We translated them to 100 languages. And basically, one language experts, like native speakers, to have like and contribute for this project, and basically correcting the prompts and completions that everyone will be represented. And very good news is that Europe is the first right now, and Lithuania is the highest contribution right now. So this is amazing for the project, and I hope we still be number one and beat other countries. We're working on that a lot. So yeah. So yeah, and we looking also language leads. So if you know people from like these old languages, especially like Luxembourgish, Maltese, Icelandic, which is like really unrepresented languages that like very small amount of people are talking. So tell me or like DM me, and it would be great to have like more language leads to contributing to this initiative. So yeah, and if you have more questions, because we have like a lot of time, so we can talk in the network section. Yeah, so that's all.
I have one question.
Yeah.
What does it take to be a language lead?
Know your language.
Is that no technical skills?
No, not at all. You don't need any technical skills. Like basically know your language is the one main criteria that you need.
Thank you. Thanks, Davidus. Now we will have the next talk, which is equality, diversity, and what does it have to do with AI. I want to invite Miglė Kolinytė and Rūta Juodelytė.
Hi, everyone. In the description, it said that we're industry experts, but it kind of didn't say which one. So we're here to present our boat industry. My name is Miglė, and this is my colleague, Rūta. So we come from an institution in Lithuania that's called the Office of the Equal Opportunities Ombudsperson, and we are an independent quality body. For Lithuanian speakers, you may know us as the Lygių galimybių kontrolieriaus tarnyba. And this is very short about what we do. So one of the main of our activities is to investigate complaints on discrimination and sexual harassment. We also submit recommendations for government and other institutions for improvement on relevant legislation. We carry out preventive and educational activities. That's most of what I and Rūta do. Of course, we exchange information with other institutions, and also we carry out the control of the implementation of the United Nations Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. There are two main acts of law in Lithuania that kind of is about equal opportunities. One of them is the law of the equal opportunities of men and women. It was in Lithuania, it was first in Eastern and Central Europe, and it's applied to both private and public sector. And it prohibits direct and discrimination on grounds of sex, sexual harassment, and destruction to disability. This particular law was the reason that our institution was founded in the first place. And another act of law is equal treatment law. This covers more grounds than just sex. It came first later in 2003, and it prohibits discrimination and harassment based upon several grounds, as you can see. It's gender, race, nationality, language, origin, social status. That includes the family status from recently. Belief, convictions, and attitudes, also age, sexual orientation, disability, ethnicity, religion, and citizenship. It's quite a lot. So here you can also see the duty bearers. So all of these kinds of discrimination are applicable in state and municipal institutions and agencies, educational establishments, lawyers and lawyers, sellers and producers of goods and providers of services, and also organizations of employers, employees, also associations. So to put things into perspective a little bit, this is statistics from last year. We kind of used a wrong word by accident, but it's not the number of complaints, it's the number of inquiries in general that we received in our office. And as you can see, gender is dominating, and it's been for several years already. So, yeah, gender is kind of one of the main things that we work on in terms of complaints, and also we not only receive complaints, but we also consult people online, on email, and Facebook messages. So this includes all of that. Now I will tell you more about the cases of discrimination and how it works in real life. So this particular case was kind of widely publicized in media. Maybe you already heard about it, but we wanted to emphasize that gender-based discrimination is in the employment process a very big problem in Lithuania, and it happens a lot still. So in this particular example, a woman who applied for a job for the Expo exhibition for Lithuanian Pavilion was asked really in case of questions in the job interview, like the ones who see clothes, upper year is not for time, and the child of that age needs a mother's hand, and recently become a mother. And also, were asked the applicant, is the price of your personal ambition too high? And of course, have a complaint, and the equal the law is of women forbids to require that information, ask those questions in the interviews. Although still it happens a lot, and we get a lot of complaints about, especially women, asked about their family plans, about having kids, about taking care of kids, and yeah, that's against the law. Another case that I want to present is this case of pricing discrimination or gender discrimination. So one salon, beauty salon in Vilnius had different prices of haircuts for men and women, but the prices was different based purely on gender of a client, not on the length of the hair or like the style, intricacy that or hours work of the hairdresser. So the person filed a complaint, and the person found that it was discriminatory on the basis of gender, and not only that, the hairdresser also humiliated and discriminated the transgender client. The trans man was asked to pay a woman's haircut price, even though the haircut that he got was the one that the hairdresser kind of classified as male. So it's kind of a double problem in this case. Another case I want to talk about is this one, because it's a famous company, maybe some of you also heard about it. And so the payment system Visa was locked the account of my customer just because he had no other way to identify himself rather than via the selfie. And online tool was not completely accessible for a person with visual impairments. So a family member had to help him, and the family member was kind of visible in the photo. Therefore, the administration ruled that it's a risk of third-party use and blocked the account immediately. And the fact is that the person was using the service for a long time. He just renewed his passport and had to take a new photo. So in this case, even though there was, according to the administration, the risk of third-party use, the the discrimination was found because according to the United Nations Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, if the tool or service is not accessible for a person with disability, it can be discrimination, no matter how it looks in the, in the final result. Yeah, now we will tell you more how lack of diversity can lead to discrimination. We have a few more examples.
Yes, hello, good evening. So I work with mainstreaming topics. Basically, mainstreaming means that all of us, every single person alive, even dead, has several features. He has age, he has gender, he has disability or ability, depending, usually language. And obviously here we're very not diverse. We are here very homogenic. Basically, this is a Lithuanian situation. But even in a, sorry, you.
You-
Okay. So basically, mainstreaming even such things as gender equality and other equality issues are a very important aspect. Mainstreaming basically means how to put things that are usually discriminating into a non-discriminating way in a very practical way. So, for example, let's say mainstreaming means that when you build a mall and you make toilets or bathrooms, you cannot make the child carrying board only in the toilet of women, because it basically would mean what? That only women will change children, or that children, when children come with fathers, parents that are not of female gender, have problems and difficulties to exchange them. And mainstreaming needs to keep in mind that we are very diverse, even if we do not even are very conscious about it. So some examples. This is also a case, a very relatively big case. This is for public sector. Nonetheless, it had some problems, or how to say, it had some consequences when those electric car park stalls had to be rebuilt, which meant a lot of money. And why did it need to be rebuilt? So basically, municipalities had a project, a huge project, to develop electronic car charging within their field, within their territories, which they did. But during the process, they did not think, or probably they did not consult any people with disability. We do know that people with disability exist among us. There is a chance that someone of you has it's called diversity. Neurodiversity, the English term is, which covers at least from 10 to 15% of humanity. It's a huge percent. It obviously autism spectrum and other things are among them. Other ADHD and such behavioral aspects. Anyhow, so when they created these car machine parking lots, they did not consider that people with disabilities will drive the car, probably, most probably. Or maybe they did, but they did not realize that people with moving disabilities need bigger spaces, because you need to take the wheelchair out of the car. You cannot do it in the same small space as you do it when you can walk. You need much less. And well, consequences were that we had to build it, cost money. I have to say, I did work with this one municipality project. We were like, have to say, a little bit curious, we were very concerned. And this is how the lack of diversity among all of us, among creation of as well AI, actually become a problem when you don't think about your users as a variety. huge variety of people with very different aspects of their of their traits, personality. Some other examples that will color them a little bit. They are all real, well, sort of real examples, or just some simple things like lighting. Lighting. I wanted to say that. Let's say, why is lighting important? Why is lighting important at all? Usually, it is important to feel people safe when it is dark. It is also important to feel people who see less to see better. Before the electricity, with all those oil lamps in Gedimino Avenue, you could not even see the pebbles on the sidewalk. This was the case. Now we do it in a different way, and so when you, let's say, in a municipality, I'm sorry, I won't go out of municipalities, in my most examples are from different municipalities, but basically, when municipality, let's say, develops a sports center, and it is somewhere in the suburbs of its main city, let's say it's in Vilnius, it's in some Pašilaičių. Well, luckily, there is a pool, it's well developed, a lot of people live, it's accessible, at least to my knowledge, to also the diversity of people. But lighting is important because this is Lithuania, and half a year we live in a dark, very dark period, or a very long period of the day. And some groups of our community will feel more vulnerable when there is not enough light. Those groups would be women, those groups would be children, those groups would be people with disabilities, especially visual or moving disabilities, and obviously it will be people with of older age. So basically, when you think of it, it's not that such a small group. I would give a different example of lighting, or just how different genders feel what is safety. So let's say I go on the street, no, let's say a man walks on the street and he has to go through the dark passage. And he sees three women standing there. Do you think he will feel unsafe? I do not. He might whistle, which is not exactly unfair. He might talk to them, he might go through them, he might do different things. Most probably he will feel safe. And those women are bad, very aggressive. Now, if you make the same, switch genders, it will be a totally different situation. Because women in the same situation would probably feel like running through that passage. So basically, when you think of different things, you need to realize that we're different. I will mention several times, but usually it's that when you mention a lot of things like big better. Now about virtual machines. It's an example of our tool with the disability community. It's a very basic thing. So there are a lot of virtual machines, and there are a lot of services going through it. It seems like a huge business to me because I see it everywhere. Anyhow, people with moving disabilities have problems that's not only physically accessing them, but even reaching the panel to actually open the door, to put in something, and let's say it opens up somewhere above, there's no way that person could actually put something in there. So parts of machines, some small part of it are probably accessible. I'm not sure about all those panels, but usually they are not. Now, about sidewalks, it's a true situation. So in one municipality, they changed sidewalks, and they did sidewalks. Usually, I like sidewalks who are full because it's easier to walk. But somehow, I heard because of ecological reasons, they decided that the sidewalks need to have holes in them. No, it's not big, but like those holes. There is grass that grows and something like that. Well, this made some groups of users of sidewalks, and sidewalks are important because otherwise you need to go on the street, like women, and women usually still how to say, only women will still use heels unaccessible, basically. It also made it less accessible for people with moving impairment. It also made more less accessible for people with ankle who need a walking, either stick or some help. It also made it less accessible for parents when they have wheelchairs to go. So basically, you could say it's a men's sidewalk, but well, maybe it's also for women who don't wear heels. But like I want to show again that probably the ones who actually were thinking of what to do, they did think of some sort of like logical part of it and something, so some maybe other, maybe it was even cheaper, I don't know, maybe it's a public procurement procedure. Anyhow, this is not a walkable sidewalk for all of the community. Public transport is an example from non-Lithuania, but basically when public transport is developed or think of or whenever the government or any other public body thinks of how to develop public transport needs to understand that women and men use public transport very differently. Those are even there are studies of different patterns how men and women use public transport. That's one thing. Another thing, usually, and it's all over the cultures, public transport is much more used, at least in Europe, by women. So whenever whenever somebody has, whenever it is developed, when the bus comes, when the trolley bus comes, when it doesn't come, it more affects women than men, or also younger than middle-aged people. The example is about the fact that in a huge city, a suburb, relatively big suburb, did not have proper public transport. I think the metro did not go there. The stop was closed. So a huge minority of women could not actually get work because it was too little accessible for them. And when this extra stop or two were made, a majority of them actually got into labor market. It's a very simple example of how the lack of services or the wrong level, the wrong when you develop wrongly harm your communities. And now the most sensible ones, informational accessibility. This is what we work a lot because we work a lot with people with disabilities. Information, easy to read language is of extreme importance for us. I don't know, but if you do know, but United Nations have developed an easy to read explanation to people with disabilities, intellectual disabilities about AI. So I thought it could be of even better use for me because I have little knowledge about AI. Well, it was way too simple for me, but even topics like AI have developed easy to read language. Anyhow, informational accessibility is important not about easy to read language, but about people with visual disabilities, especially, and you have to, well, we need to understand that if the service one is a customer, a blind customer is still a customer, and you have to think of it when you develop your services or machines. The language. So I heard that the Lithuanian language is being developed into AI, right? So probably you know that the Lithuanian language is one of the most gendered languages that exists on earth. Everything is male or female, there's no neutral pronoun, and language is so it's a very huge part of our culture. It has been developed long for decades and decades and thousands of years, it has its own history. But looking, let's say, from a gender perspective, it is more Lithuanian, I'm not familiar that well with other languages, and how Lithuanian perspective, Before we had child care applications, we had maternity applications, or parental. So I don't know how many men would like to go on maternity leave. Not too many men go on parental leave even. But basically, it does. I mean, language matters. That's what I want to say. It does matter. So when you develop AI, it takes into account that there are obviously, and you probably know, the Turkish and English language are taking account when developing AI language tools, right? When we translate no gender into Turkish, but when we translate it from Turkish into English, the doctor is a male and the nurse is female. Well, AI thinks it's right. So whoever created that AI also thinks probably this way. Anyway, language also matters because we don't even have terms for some of the professions. So we have babysitter, and if you have an image of babysitter, most probably you do have an image of a female, either young or old. Usually you don't have an image of male babysitter. I don't think I've ever met, but anyway, but we don't even have a male term for babysitter. We don't. We have only outing. We don't have outing. We try to use it already. It's very rare, but even I have to get used to it. So language is really important, and you use a lot of data in creating at your work, and this is expressed not only in numbers but also in that. Yes. So these are examples.
Yes, so now the biggest question, what all of these cases have to do with AI. So I chose this code, and obviously Emmanuel Kant did not use AI when he wrote the sentence, but it's very relevant today when you think about it, because we as a society are full of bias, as you saw from Ruta's examples, and no matter how hard we try to eliminate, it's still hard because we still have things like language, for example, in Lithuania. We still have differences in employment sector. We still have everything that kind of fuels that bias bit by bit, and it doesn't look like we're going to eliminate it very soon. So with that in mind, we have the products created by the society that are also biased. And in the case of AI, I'm an expert, but sometimes it's even more, the bias in AI is even more exaggerated or multiplied faster. And we think that might be, it is a big problem, and it might be even a bigger one if we don't take action. So we're going to talk a little bit about some examples that has already happened. I'm sure you know the biggest cases like Amazon employment situation, the racial discrimination in the U.S. healthcare system, and U.S. criminal system when assessing risks of possible reoffenders. But I will tell you more about this one because this is actually one that the knowledge body, just like us, was involved in the Netherlands.
Well, well, you are. I think one another. I will kind of scandal. Okay. Well, I thought at least someone did that. I guess writing not very a thing that you like think on every day or at least once a week. But this is a huge scandal because it actually ends up in the collapse of the government of the Dutch government. It is about child welfare system. So in 2015, a child welfare system was developed that used self-assessment algorithms, if I'm correct. And it was used for the distribution of childcare allowances for parents to go back to labor market. Obviously, very often it's more affected by it's more important is extremely much more important child caring, 8% of men go on maternity leave. 8%, 92 out of the numbers grow in the second year, but basically only because of mathematical calculation. So whenever we talk about employment employment during the first years of children, it means much more important employment. This is, let's see, as a fact of this. So the scandal is the fact that for a long, about 7 or 8 years, I don't remember the exact number, of Dutch authorities, tax authority, took different set of data, used it to track tax fraud. But in doing so, it used the risks during the algorithm that said that it's a risk. Three things were of importance. So one was that if it was dual nationality or not, if it was recent or not immigrant, recent than 25 years, and if it's general nationality. So, and data was prepared. I'm not talking about how it was developed, but it was algorithm set and according to algorithm data, tax authorities did the plan their action. So they said about a fraud based on this algorithm. Well, not necessarily, because the risks were very limited. So it's also a scandal because the data that they used were not the GDPR. And your GDPR is you know, right? Because we do what they did. You know what they did. Basically, the consequences of this long-term usage of discriminatory algorithm, the discrimination was actually
Non-direct.
non-direct, because it's direct discrimination and non-direct. This is the non-direct discrimination, and on race and ethnicity. It also had more impact on families with the lower income, because it affected thousands of people, 10,000 of people, like huge, it's a huge rate. Unfortunately, it is not that. I just read that 1,000 children in foster care because of this. 1,000 children. I want to correct. Yeah.
Well, and suicide
Were commented because of that too. Yeah, the consequences are very, very real.
Yes, now we want to talk about the future. I think you know a little bit more about the future, how it looks like, at least AI future. We are more concerned about the regulatory systems. I do believe that you know something about the EU
AI Act, and you have a pyramid, risk, everything, pyramids, total ban, scores, profiling, that the way this handle is considered social profiling. But it will, well, in my opinion, it will come not that maybe 2-3 years, just still a long period of time. And such things will happen that discriminations will exist. Basically, what we want to say is, let's say, develop a program in the system that people start using or using it for private sector, that they will still be responsible to make sure that when this works, it is fundamental rights, it's transparent, it's accountable, it's usable, how it's handled, it's used, and stuff like that. Another thing, I'm not sure you know MCAT, it's a very recent thing, it's been established like a month ago. Digital Service Act. So it concerns huge online platforms, huge search platforms. Digital Service Act is about different online and search engine providers and with different obligations. So I'm not aware of what it's about. A cat is a new thing. Basically, it's about transparency of algorithms, and it works for you. Another thing that maybe might be interesting for you, maybe you've heard of them, that is what happened in Lithuania, our regulatory sandboxes. These are basically governmental institutions where people who create AI systems, academics, human rights specialists, government people come in one place and test systems there. I need to finish. Good. So, okay, so there is also Parent. It's a very interesting institution, regulatory sandbox in Google. Parent is also Google, and it's an institution formed by the France government, and it works in two ways. It is a central expert in data science that can provide technical support and guidance to state administration. So it's the government, as I said, but it also services regulatory power. So if you need of how the system, the system could lead rapidly, actually work in the government, not for that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rūta. That was a powerful talk. It kept us engaged. I did not feel like coming and interrupting we were running out of time. Thank you very much. The next talk will be Diversity-Driven AI, Building an Inclusive Future by Karolina Griciūnė. Sorry. I will set it up.
So I will begin. So great to see you here today. Everything. I see the most diverse community so far, which is great, but also the most point that diverse the topic is more diverse. So far, yes, we have slides. And as humans, we are building systems, physical systems, persons, and we heard a lot of examples of how we fail when people are not considering the fact that we are diverse. So I will talk about machine learning systems and what to do and how to build them and how to make sure that we are not getting into the biases. This will be quite technical talk compared to the whole talk. So basically, the fact that I'm ill, this is the problem. I faced when I was a student, and then I applied as physics, and I applied for the summer internship. I got the internship, and then my supervisor came to me and said, "Yeah, you were great. Of course, you're getting the internship." This was the Institute of Theoretical Physics, and he told me, "But we're not paying you because your also applied for internship, and we have only one paid internship." And he's a guy. And I was waiting for more explanation, but then that's the job. He's a guy, the same thing. So that was the first material thing that I faced. And later on, as a specialist, I started working as a data scientist quite early. So it will be almost 10 years. I've experienced a lot of cases, a lot of painful cases, and I was thinking of telling some of them, but I'd rather not because I might talk for numbers. But I was lucky because I worked in Scandinavian company, and I worked in Denmark. So I was out in that sense because when I got back to Lithuania, I was in shock when I moved out of the Scandinavian company and started working in global companies. Like I'm still in the shock of what's happening here. So when I became a manager and I am having quite active as a mentor, I had to witness a lot of sad stories. For example, a few weeks ago, my MD called me and she's trying to get an ML engineer position. She's already working as an ML engineer, so she's experienced. And she got to the final stage, meaning that she was, it was the final stage where you have to, be selected out of many applicants. And she got the feedback that we are not hiring you because you talk so much. And then her husband is a limited company, and she asked her husband, so he's programming. So do I talk too much? And the president was like, but they probably don't talk that much. Yeah, maybe they are right. So imagine what I had to do. So our mentorship, and like honestly, because I'm a female mentor, like 90+% of my mentees are female, and what we talk about, what we talk the most is about like being females in this. And I have endless number of examples, and I have to deal with them. I have to live with them, and I learn how to live with them happily. And actually, I guess that's it because that was my biggest worry that I spent too much time on this. Few weeks earlier, I got this email. I was not even thinking about this topic. I got this email. This is from the summit organizers, and they did an experiment. You can see the headline. They did an experiment. They asked ChatGPT to visualize, give the profile of CEO, Tech Fortune 500, and they got the answer. And that was written like in very excellent, and that's only 28% of the respondents was described as female. And by the way, disclaimer, when I think about the diversity, it's so much more than gender, age. It's about the introverts, extroverts. It's about everything. But I would give maybe examples because I'm female, and I will give some examples from my experience. Please don't mind, but like I speak a lot for the goal of diversity that we usually talk to. So basically, that was very things like AI, discrimination, bias, and what I did, and I'm doing this all the time. I Googled so how many CEOs in this particular field we actually do have. And then I have another article, which is like Forbes celebrating that finally we have 10%. So basically, the ChatGPT and Dolly gave us, the better reality or the better result that we do have, if we think that it's better, it's relative. But since the beginning, I got into this AI ethics area of relation field, and it was 2018. I remember that. I always think about this situation when we are pointing the finger into the mirror and saying, "Hey, AI, you are doing wrong." And another example, the most famous example of everything that happens to AI with some bias, the Amazon's recruitment machine learning system. They did this in 2015. That's two sentences because I will be this example later on. So basically, Amazon MLP 2016, they developed the model to screen the applicants. And 2 months later, they realized, we are not finding applicants. Then the team fixed the model. Technically, we looked into the engine and we found out that female candidates, they are more aligned. And they removed the access. Technically, it was not to deal with that bias. And then a huge scandal, the team was let go because the model. Why no one questions the Amazon structure of not hiring females, not inviting females for years? Because how the model works is basically you fit the model of what is happening, and then you get the prediction of that day. So when I hear those stories, I think not only about AI and mechanicity and how we can see that AI is introducing bias and do the harm. I'm also questioning the reflection part of it. How do we make sure that we're not introducing more bias in AI? If we do, then how can we fix it and how can we make it better, and like how much do we want it to be better? So if we are thinking about this purpose life diagram, Maslow's pyramid, we probably everyone knows that, and we know that we, in order to talk about ethics, self-actualization, self-realization, we need to fill our basic needs. Like if I haven't had food for days, like no one needs to talk about ethics to me. Like I'm not there yet. And we like by our intuition and how we get as human beings know that. But when we talk about AI systems, it's actually very similar. So companies, they have a lot of needs that need to be fulfilled in order to get there. So yeah, I'm talking about if this diagram seems very simple to you, so the reality, it's actually oversimplified reality, but the reality looks like this. So first of all, data needs. If companies think that sometime in the future they want to have AI systems, they have to have data platform. They have to have proper ETL. They have to have data governance. Who of you have data governance in your companies? Either you are active or okay. So these are basic needs like food. Analytics. So rule engines, transaction layers, data consumer serving layers, and data quality. And I've seen companies having 300 plus dashboards and not having data quality. So basically what is happening, they are giving numbers, they're giving graphs and plots with very nice colors, great designs to their boards, to their C level, to their manager, and those numbers mean nothing. Because they wanted to get a result, they wanted to show what they had, but they don't care about the quality. Again, basic needs. Sorry, I'm too short for that. Again, there's so I will have to tell you. So, and a lot of companies are struggling, and this lack becomes a secret of those companies. And if we are getting, I know great companies who have models in production, who are working with our models, and as it's said, someone with great power has great responsibility. Those companies have a normal models running in production. They have to already think about the AI ethics and trustworthy AIs because they're there. And in terms of regulations, they are looking, and it's not the question if we will have regulations now. The question is when we will have regulations now. And we don't know about things. And I talk with data science, they're telling, yeah, but we don't know what kind of regulations it will be, so why do we have to design our systems in that way now? So yeah, we don't know what's going to happen on the top, that's why I put that question mark. But we know it's here. So data platform, ML pipelines, we can prepare for this right now and not wait for, for new tools and new platforms, and ensure that there will be new tools and platforms in order to serve trustworthy AI needs. But not right now. We can work here. Actually, the purpose of my talk is to show that there is so much we can do right now, and it won't cost a lot, it won't hurt. So basically, when we talk about the model, we always see this more simplified version, and the question would be, what can go wrong? So a lot of things go wrong here. So we have this oversimplified ML flow version. We talk about this, then usually, yeah, we speak through the process, and this is the common mistakes that ML engineers and data scientists make. They jump into solution, and then they turn for bias lead ones, or other companies who are working under regulations. So this might be financial institutions, healthcare, aviation, and it's not only basically possible to see the bias of the final product, because like, how can you see the impact towards accuracy on the subset that represents majority? So minorities, because the majority statistically takes the win. And I've seen this happening all over again. But the biggest problem that I see over and over again for many, many years, that when data scientists and engineers are building model, they get back to the question, so what is the problem that we try to solve? And when talking about trustworthy AI, this is how I see ML flow. There are a lot of elements that can be added. There are some elements that can be removed. It depends on the company, on the context. But basically, the same small. And every model starts with business requirements. I'm not joking here. Business requirements. So, as the manager of data scientists, my main job, I am not to do plans, not at all. My main job is business people, legal, HR, and put them as data scientists and put them in one room and make sure that business, they define the model, they define the rules, they define what they need. Again, this is the problem. And if you have business requirements, it's already great. But what can go wrong with business requirements? So first of all, when you are about to start building a model, think about the model team, this virtual, temporary, and model team. So it should be diverse. And again, diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, diverse people. And here I have a great example. I did a conference, and there was like one, I guess, ML manager presenting how we build one ML model, and it was a product predicting menstrual cycles for women. And it was very nice talk, but at the very end, I still remember maybe it was during Q&A, he told that the model accuracy was getting wrong, and they couldn't understand what's happening because, in general, the accuracy was great, but during the first days of the cycle, it was terrible. And later on, it was fixed. And they lived with this problem for months at least, until they talked with someone, and someone was female, their colleague, not working across the reality, and that female colleague explained that during the first days of cycle, women feel bad, and they don't want to register the data. And a few days later, they feel bad, go to the app, and they register their data. They fix the problem. So basically, lack of diversity was the reason of the worse accuracy of the model. Direct. Then guidelines and policies. So even though you are working in a company that is not like generally regulated, there are models, for example, pricing model when you are doing pricing, deciding on the price for each customer that are regulated. And companies and individuals have to respect that and knowing that there are policies and guidelines is already success for the team. Another story, this is my personal story. I've been asked to build a pricing model, and I told them, great, let's do the pricing model. By the way, pricing policies. I haven't worked so far with the pricing model. Let me check the policies I would like to do. I talked to the policy side, I talked to someone who built those models, I got back to the legal, I got back to the management, I explained and decided to postpone the model. I left the company months later, getting the call from someone still working in the company, and that's when one says, what? I'm building that model. And I was like, great, so happy for you, just remind the policies. And then we got to the question that who is responsible? So who is responsible if the company is not like compliant? And I can tell from the experience that it depends when management will realize that something bad is happening, whether it happens internally or externally. And the first thing that I heard that that's one who was about to build this pricing model was about to leave, which is like really bad in the we're basically possible so far. And one thing that anyone can do is just to simply perform bias impact assessment. I know this sounds scary, but this is basically asking the question, where can it go wrong? So getting back to this Amazon example, imagine that we are building a model for HR, screen applicants, reject, remove them. What can go wrong? I don't know if you feel that, I think the answer is clear. Like equality, diversity can go wrong. And I'm sure that if they would have done this bias impact assessment, they would get to that question that should we check, like applicants, not even like gender, like race, age, etc. They done better, or at least didn't get to this scale. And remember that it is a iterative approach. You have to get that. But if you don't have it written anywhere, you don't have a place to get that. Then getting back to ML flow, the second step is the data. And I would say if anyone asks me, so what is the main reason for the bias? And I guess a lot of us get to that answer. It's like we apply bias towards ML models through data. Because again, our language is biased, and those biases are changing over time. For example, Stanford recently developed a huge study analyzing biases, how they change over time, and how our language is changing over time. So when collecting data, think of subgroups and minorities. Have you included everyone? Can you do better? Maybe it's not enough. Maybe again having business requirements, and while you're defining business requirements, understand that you simply cannot do that model. It's a win. It's not the lose for you, but it's a win. The second one is the data quality, and data quality is a huge topic. But what I want to tell with that is that you might have like data gaps. So imagine like if you have some, for example, customers living in countries that they have limited access to the internet. So the data they register might be, you might experience some gaps. So you have to take into consideration those things as well. Data processing and sensitive information. This is basically about the GDPR and how to comply with GDPR. And I have when working with my employees, I will never get tired talking about GDPR. I will give another example later on. And then if you will look for bias, you will find bias. And that's fine. And what you have to do right then is to talk together with the team, like legal, maybe someone who is responsible in your company, and then ask the question, is it okay? Can we mitigate those biases? Can we work to something, right? And then you have to monitor them. And there's a very small thing you can do. Any machine learning engineer, data scientist can do is to put aside the test data set before looking into data. I don't see data scientists doing that often. Basically, putting aside a subset before looking into data. And what I'm talking about is that when you have the raw data, you have the subset that you call as data, you take that out and you forget about it, then you have exploratory data, then you split it into the training and validation data, and then you work with the feature engineering one validation on those. You don't touch this one. I will get back to you later. Then there is another very small thing. It's called the movement sample. It's about the traceability and the transparency. So the movement sample is something that basically this should be as a picture or a data set of how your data looked like when you decided to deploy the model. So basically, you were so proud of your model, you thought that you finished the model, and then you decided to deploy. Of course, if you have other model pipelines, you can trace it back through the pipelines, but it's not always the case. And it's not always the case because data engineers and data scientists usually work in different teams, and data get lost. Then model engineering and feature selection. And if I will tell you that you have to be careful with selection, by selecting features, and you say, we know that, but you have no idea how many times people came to me saying, hey, I built a model and I have this amazing feature. So basically, I'm taking the gender, the age, and the country. I'm combining it into one. I have this feature, and it's amazing. It predicts so well. It's like a predictor in the model. I don't know where to start explaining what can go wrong, especially if you are, for example, setting price based on this feature. Also, if you do have features and you are happy with them, don't forget to monitor them. And also, there might be bias in these. So please keep in mind that you have to have, you can like sampling. There's an opportunity called reject mode, where you can turn off the model uncertainty is too high. Again, back to this Amazon example. If they would be using de-biasing techniques, maybe they would be outbalancing their whole outcome. And then again, maybe this will be a question for the panel discussion later on, then balancing towards what? Do we need orders? Do we need what? But I will do this for your thoughts and maybe for the questions later. And don't forget user testing as soon as possible. Show your features to your users, because users are always full with criticism, and you can use this criticism in order to improve your model earlier than it's been released. So remember, I told you about this test data set, and when you are working with your model and you are validating your model, and you are working, on this cycle that you are building features, validating assumptions, and when you are happy with your model, when you feel that you've done, basically take your data as a data set and then check again. And usually what is happening, people see that the model is not generalizing well, and they have to rethink maybe business requirements. And if someone works with me, I have a very bad thing when someone comes to me and says, I finished the model, we should order the cake. My accuracy is 92%. And then usually my question is accurate to whom and accurate when. Because when we talk about model accuracy, we need to define fairness metrics. So accuracy of 92, for example, percent, and that means basically nothing, especially if you're working with human data. Also, model performance and like how stable the model is. For example, you should track it over time and also check the populations. So again, that's the question accurate to whom. Then individual fairness, it means that if you have similar individual results, the model should be also similar. That's another check that should be done. And disparate impact is basically to look on the sensitive attributes. It's best to remove them, but then sometimes you cannot, because maybe the purpose of the model is to, evaluate the, for example, sensitive groups and then try to help them. So then you simply can't do that. So you have to check that. And the last piece is about documentation. Whether you have, again, tools and frameworks that do that for you, but have everything written. You don't need to write PhD papers, but you have to have business requirements. You have to have written explanation on what you did, what kind of features you selected, why you selected those features, what kind of data you delete, and why you delete that data. So I always say that the documentation should be like another year. Today I created one feature. I'm not sure if it's going to increase the bias of the model. Let's see later, because later on we can get back review. And also model registry. Basically, having versions, what regulations will be about, for sure, is that when you have a model running in production, regulators won't come the next day. Regulators will come a year later, then they will ask the number on that day, the model adopted that result. And you would have to trace back the data, the version of the model, features, so basically the snapshot of how the model looked like back then on that day. So if you don't have a more than a pipeline, you can do this manually, simplified version, but that will be a requirement. I am almost sure about that. And the final thing is monitoring and logging. When you deploy model into production, you are responsible for monitoring its performance, and not only model's performance, but as well data quality, features, model things, etc. And also those green arrows are feedback loops. Those automatically alert if something is getting wrong in the model. So what I wanted to say with this talk is diversity as the fact, it's given to us, we are diverse, but diversity as the value is something that we need to learn over and over again since the ancient times. And I guess today we have to learn how to learn these lessons, but together with AI and the systems we built. So thanks, that's it from my side.
Thank you, Karolina. Now we will have the panel discussion with Dov Zavadskis, Miglė Kolinytė, and Rūta Juodelytė, and myself. I think this is a good culmination of everything, all the topics that were given. Many thoughts would have occurred to you in your mind. I think this is the time for you to ask any questions that may have occurred to you based on the talks you were exposed to.
Yeah, and I will be moderating this. If you can get to the next slide. So I made a QR code for everyone, and that was a bit intentional that we haven't given time for
for questions, because you can ask questions right now
Oh, where is the QR code?
in my slide.
In your
Yeah.
People online said that it's sounds so bad when we get here. Yeah, my friends texted me that it's like
Okay.
you can hear like a few words.
If you can. But is it got bad right now or since the beginning?
Since the beginning.
Okay, so here's a QR code for the questions. We give some minutes for the setup. Just document. Hello. Maybe you already have some questions because we wanted to have this slide opportunity to keep this, anonymous. Like if you have any questions about the presentations, what you, okay, sure. Then I will do the job.
This comes to the training data that you use. If at all you want to have a representative, first don't use gender as much as possible. If at all it is something that is what do they call not entirely needed. An example might be in, for example, prediction in healthcare, stuff like that, and all these things. But in general, if it affects something in the society regarding your application to a bank or your application to a job, etc., so not to use it because the model is just spitting out what it is being trained upon. So I get your point. What you're saying, model is not lying or anything, but it's reinforcing something that's already there. So you're taking the value of the model and taking it as some level of truth or something that people say, okay, I got a result of this and I will use it. But there is no question behind that.
I'm afraid that usually when you get such model, you want to, like when you see the result, you want by yourself to bias the same model by your input, like some additional input. For example, you see, okay, you see a little bit too less female than male. Okay, you bias like you give some additional score to get females more. So again, like as human, you are biasing the real model, what is actually showing the truth. Like by your input, again, like you're applying your bias. Here, what I mean, like basically you can bias your model, which is showing through by applying additional biases from you as a human. This kind of, again, lines.
Yeah, and we also do have ethical standards in our world. And we have to apply some ethical standards if we want to. And sometimes we have laws and regulations for that. So one real example I can share that people are using devising techniques is in banks when they are building credit score models. So imagine that females couldn't get a loan because they're females. And the fact is that the world is changing and females are getting more rights. I'm talking about the longer perspective. And they're getting paid and they can take the loan sometimes. And they want to take loans sometimes alone. And the fact that, training models purely based on historical data, we would ban female from taking loans. So, not sure?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, there was another question.
So, actually, quite naturally, following from your answer, because I'm also working in the credit industry, and it is actually quite specifically about this industry as well. So, there has been discussion about discrimination, but what I wanted to ask is perhaps an open question about how we could measure discrimination, because I think what happens in the credit industry, what I observed for a fact, is that depending on how you measure the discriminatory impact of your models, you can get contradictory outcomes. So, as an example, in the US, there is ECOA, what's called Equal Credit Opportunities Act, which restricts certain variable use in the models, but not only that, it restricts use of models that would discriminate, have on average unequal values assigned to different categories. So, for example, we wouldn't be able to use a model that would assign a worse credit score to a female than a male, even if, so on average, even if you didn't use the actual gender as the variable. In Europe, generally, that's not regulated in such a way. Instead, regulators focus on affordability and on actually making sure that customers who get credit, can afford it, don't default. So what we see in the US is that because we have quite a large number of different variables that we exclude from our models that we would use in Europe, we have higher default rates, and we have, furthermore, an incentive to exclude variables that would probe whether a customer had any experience with predatory lending. So actually what this creates is an industry of predatory lending, which affects primarily higher risk customers, such as ethnic minorities, racial minorities. However, what the US regulation ensures is that whenever someone gets their credit application decision, so approved or declined, there is equality. In Europe, there is no such thing. In general, customers who are an ethnic minority will on average, I think in most countries, have a worse chance of getting credit, but the outcomes after they get credit will be more equal because we will be able to include more variables, and on average, customers who get credit and are ethnic minorities will then default at the same rate as other customers, whereas in the US, they would default at a higher rate. So the question is, how, this was just as an example, but how could we actually consider how to measure discrimination? Because I've given this particular case where we could measure discrimination two different ways, either as a chance to get approved for credit or as a chance of getting credit that you can afford and repay. And these can be in contradiction with each other. Of course, this is a very specific industry example that we wanted to use to illustrate this point, but we can think of other examples where, depending on how we measure the outcomes of the model use, we can get different discriminatory assessment of the model. So how would you suggest to tackle this problem in an organization?
I can give that.
Yeah, quite a lengthy question.
Anyone? Slide 10.
I could talk about the part where you said the way you see it can be contradictory based on how you're seeing it, as long as it is blind to the gender and there are no secondary factors that are contributing to it. And when we check, when we are validating the model, and when we see blindly, if we introduce a male into the test set and a female into the test set as test values, and we see that there is some difference just despite having same salary, same social status, etc. If they have something different, then that is something that can show us that there is something not right. We have to look further. It's not clear enough. We have to start suspecting right away.
Yes, but so for example, in the US, even if there were differences on average between the female and male population in this example, for example, females were lower salaries on average, and because of this fact, not the female gender as such, the model would assign a worse credit score to females. That would still be legal. Whereas in Europe, that would be perfectly legal, and that is my question.
Yeah, I do not know how to solve this, but I can give you an example of, for example, India, we have quota system, for example, just because you belong to a certain community or gender, automatically this quota has to be filled. So it is like a counterbalance to remove what is inherent, which you cannot directly change in a generation or something, but you can counteract in the decision making. You can immediately set that, what do they call, the ultimate rule on top. Like this has to be filled regardless of what. So there could be something like that. There should be some mitigating factor, like Karolina mentioned. There should be some mitigation. Banks, for example, have mitigation for all the things that are not that cannot be changed directly. But in terms of gender, I still have to think deeper. If it is not a case where gender is being used, if it is a case where the gender is not being used in the model, then looking for secondary factors and looking for bias itself existing in the model, and beyond that, there should be counter measures like this on top, some agreed upon rules which are agreeable to the whole society or something like that.
Have we answered the question?
I think I might have failed a little bit in phrasing it very accurately, but I think we can leave it maybe if there is any formal discussion. I don't want to take up too much time.
Okay, because my prediction is that we will talk more and more about the regulations and what is happening. And here I see my favorite question, and I will ask Dov. We haven't presented you, so Dov Zavadskis is a career coach who worked many years as the recruiter, talent sourcer, right, in UK. So we talked, we know each other for some time, and we thought that the culture is a bit different. And I would like to ask you to answer the second question. Is diversity as the goal in hiring not discriminatory? If there's one person for an employee, 100 men and 2 women applying, why would you hire a woman for diversity? And I hear this question over and over again for my last 10 years. I haven't got the good answers, so maybe this is the time for you.
Well, so much pressure. Well, the reality is that in some of I had two contracts where I was specifically working on trying to find female candidates, right? So that's already a pretty crazy idea just to think about it, but there's a really logical reasoning for it. So first of all, going back to the first presentation, we were told about, I kind of agree with what Karolina was saying, that diversity is not just men and women, right? This is just one of the first things that we start thinking about when it comes to diversity. It's easy to kind of spot like a list of CEOs, for example, the percentage is too low. There are deeper challenges there. Women and men don't act the same way with the recruitment process. That's a much bigger topic in itself. So, when I was focused on finding women, I was looking for data scientists, big data, digital, like really, really different kind of type of, basically you guys, right? But just within the London or Berlin. The challenge is women don't apply for the jobs in the same way that men do. What I mean by that is that men will apply to the job when they don't even fit the profile. right? So where I would step in was to reach out to a woman and say, hey, I believe after our conversation that you have everything what we're looking for. You can ignore like 40–50% of the job description requirements because they're just, buzzwords, and even the managers, they don't even know why they're mentioning those things because somebody was mentioning it, but the team doesn't need that, And the thing was that just because women are getting into the process, it doesn't guarantee that you're getting a job. I think this is a myth to begin with. Of course, it depends on the company, it depends on what they're looking for, it depends on their diversity agenda that they have. I had a situation, for example, when I was looking for a senior recruiter for one business, and we were part of an agency in London, and it was so immoral what the business was doing because they said, for this role, we don't want the white man. Right? And this is out in the open, and this is in the UK. So, the crazy part is that, then this kind of, a joke when the recruitment kind of community started circling around, that if you're a white male and you're straight, it's getting harder and harder to get a job because you're not diverse enough. And, in London, for example, even if you go to a library, they ask you for they ask you for nationality, they ask you for your religion, sexual orientation, library. And even when you sign a contract in a company, they ask you for that as well. There's a question that they frame: what of the following diversity categories do you represent, or do you fall under, or something? Because at the end of the day, they do want to have the, hey, we named the CEO, oh, it's a black woman. Oh, we named the CEO, someone, Asian, for example. This is, we see those headlines all the time, but I believe that when we stop paying attention to those headlines and we just say, hey, this is a list. I said this to Karolina the other day. There was one influencer on LinkedIn, content creator. He shared a list of 30 influential CEOs and owners, like a startup owners, that you should follow. And the list had 30 women. It didn't say 30 female entrepreneurs. It said 30 CEOs. And I think it's down to us also thinking in a different way to start with, because we put that difference on the pedestal to begin with. We give it a lot of attention, and I believe this does damage because, when I was talking about the candidate, for that company who didn't want a male candidate, I was speaking to one of the best people in the industry. She was a woman, black, and in tech. And she said, I'm not even going to consider the opportunity because everyone in that company is white. And I don't want to be a diversity hire. I know that Lithuania is very different, the diversity here is really narrow, but we really need to look at those things differently, because my tip for women applying to the jobs: connect to people working for those companies to begin with, because what you see in the job description is not necessarily what they're looking for. So that was a very long comment.
Listening to you, I thought, wow, so many things that are illegal in Lithuania were mentioned.
They're illegal in the UK as well, but
yeah.
illegal.
Yeah, well, here it's because we're doing that job. I won't put the quotes, air quotes on it. Full disclaimer: we're not from the law department of our organization, so there might be some maybe not like. Not true information, but it's kind of from our side of the story. So to answer the question kind of there, so quotas in Lithuania are still not legal as a temporary mechanism. So if a company want to hire someone just because they're male, female, or any other gender, that would be illegal according to the equal treatment law. That must be said, because you said that you were asking that question many times. So here's the answer: it's not legal. In a few years, maybe in 2025, I don't remember the year exactly, we will have one part of the EU regulation that quotas will be legal in certain type of big corporations and only in the board member groups. The quota will be that, I mean, it still will have to go through a lot of evaluation, regulation, and it won't be evaluated based, like just on gender. The person will have to have competences, but it will be possible very soon, but only in the board members of big corporations. But anywhere else, it's still yeah, illegal. And another thing that you mentioned, that if you get a job in UK, you are asked by your employer these questions about your religion. I don't know if you're obliged to answer them there, but that would also, I think, would not be legal in Lithuania. For employer, you are an employee with certain competences, and you may not want to disclose your religion, and you shouldn't. Yeah, so yeah, just.
I want to add to the construction of the question. It is and not it's not technical in a sense that in the question I already feel that somebody thinks that those two women are less than 98 men or 100 men. Sorry, I mean, well, anyhow. So somebody thinks in here by constructing this question, they will not be already equal by gender, just by gender. When hiring people, even from the equality perspective, nobody says that you have to hire a less competent person. Nobody ever said anytime, anyhow, in any context. But when we talk about quotas and when we hear that we will get so many competent people, I would like you to remind you Lithuanian statistics, which says that women are much better educated. So whenever you think that you will get a less competent person, you need to keep in mind that usually women are much more educated. It doesn't now about hiring, and I wanted to about diversity in Lithuania and this discriminatory aspect. So let's say from the perspective of diversity, but not on gender. Because gender is easier to understand, but let's say put that disability. Obviously, probably in IT, a person with intellectual disability will have little opportunities to work in. But in any case, diversity could, in Lithuania, we will have a regulation from next year that 5% of public sector bodies will have to be people with disabilities. Now, is this discriminatory? And why do we try to do it? We're not saying AI sector, we're saying general, right? So the reason behind it is because people with disabilities don't get jobs. And then you have a whole system that needs to keep them. They are poor, they have poor health, they need a lot of help from them. So basically, it's the same about quotas. You not necessarily will get a less person. You will just give more space for bigger variety of experiences with the same quality and experience and stuff like that. Because obstacles why women do not get to such positions, or people with disability or people of certain age do not get to certain positions are institutional. And we need to work on them on many levels.
Just one little thing I want to add about the quotas. I must mention that the quotas, they are a temporary measure. They are not like in our company, we will have quotas forever, and like there's no reason for that. Quotas are a temporary measure to reach equality in certain field. So it can be applied until that equality is reached. For example, I don't know, there are less women in those boards that I mentioned in the big corporations. So when we reach that level of equality, the quota, I think it can be revoked. So yeah, a lot of people think that it's kind of forever, but it's not. You wanted to add something?
I heard a point regarding women being better educated. I actually agree on that, not just in gender basis, but also on a racial basis. It has some point that I encountered. So when you are being ignored just because you are of a certain group, there is a coping mechanism that you try harder to overcome that. So you have to be so good that people cannot ignore you, and that might be contributing to this. And I have seen that in immigrant children, for example, immigrant parents, etc. They try to force education as the way out of anything that might be a stopping factor in a new community that they are in, etc.
And also, sometimes what I've noticed, in also my friends and people that I coach, that sometimes when you look at the situation and you don't know what to do, the first thing that comes to our mind, oh, I need to get a certificate, I need to learn, I need to take a course, I need to go to university. And sometimes, okay, if you're taking something short term, it's one thing. But if you think that just because that you enroll into a university for 4 years, and after 4 years you will be much better than someone else, sometimes you might be just delaying the uncomfortable conversation with yourself, that you need to take, because now we have so much you have so much content out there that is completely for free, that you can access YouTube. Karolina, anyone who's sharing content online, they can give you a lot of knowledge, right? So don't go into that trap of I need to specifically go just for the sake of having it. That's one thing, because also think that diversity is one of the companies that Karolina and I we used to work at. I was part of the HR team, and I remember they were doing the annual feedback report, whatever, and there was a question about education, and out of 2,000 employees, there were only 2% that didn't have bachelor degree, right? The irony was that the majority of the management didn't have that bachelor degree, right? So that's also diversity element. So yeah.
But why so many companies still put in that you need higher education, master degree, especially in data science and ML field, you need PhD or master as like the main criteria, and it's always on the top, like always on the top on these requirements. You need to have master in specific field or PhD. After that, you cannot.
Well, let's see. Data science is a bit different. I'm sure that without education, it would be very difficult. I think within data science, it's extremely difficult to get that very first job to begin with, because some company needs to invest in trusting you that you can do something, right? Because right now, ChatGPT can create your CV, someone can prepare you for a job interview, but at the end of the day, it's more about what you do, and it's about finding the right environment. I've seen people making mistakes that they're only chasing the big brands, Facebooks, Amazons, they're the ones firing people right now, and people still want to work for them, right? So go back to what you were asking about education. Even, I've seen that the companies that I've been supporting, they would be making exceptions. Because, for example, let's say Expedia, I was working for Expedia Hotels.com in London, and they needed people who were specifically good at coding in R, right? So, but then I was told that, hey, if they know SQL, then it's okay, because then it's easier to pick it up, and we can invest, we can put the training and this and that, and it's all done internally. So if they're good, and if they want to learn, if they're motivated, we were screening and talking to people who not just had what it takes, or the requirements, but your willingness to learn, adapt, and do things differently, because this is how you stand out. Being the first, from your class is not necessarily going to make you, a top employee, or part of the team. I see, people from like Oxford who like so cocky that you really want to slam, you want to shake them up and say, look, no one is going to hire you. No one. They don't care about you, because I don't even want to talk to you. And yeah, I'm from Oxford, no one cares. You know, so I would say, you know, especially for the first job, I would say don't chase the brand, go where the values are, the product, what you want to build for, you know, the future, you know, it has to be synergy. The brands will come later. And as soon as you have at least a year, or even sometimes 6 months, that's when people like me are going to start saying, hey, oh, do you want to talk? Because this is how it starts. You need to have someone else give you a chance. And this is a really difficult thing. I've seen people cut down their salaries to just have that opportunity, you know, to go into the field that they want and move in data science.
I have to tell this, but I might regret. From my experience, when I see job ads, like being a data science manager for years, when I see job ads with a lot of requirements, and when I look in the profile of the manager. So, okay, there was another question actually, and I cannot see that, but this was for me, and I will quickly answer that. Do we have any guidelines for bias impact assessments and debiasing techniques? So the short answer is no. I was like handpicking each one of them. Some of them I found in papers, some of them I kind of remember because I was working in a regulatory environment for years. So the short answer is no, but I guess this is the time to create one. Okay, sorry, I see this question. Let's take maybe the last actually question, because this is a very hot and hard topic to talk about, the bias, and I was stopping myself from adding more and more examples. So let's maybe talk about the future. Let's take the last one. In diversity policies, is equal of opportunity or equal of outcome is the goal? So is it the goal to have equal opportunities and equal outcomes as the outcomes of AI systems? I understood
the person who asked the question, do you understand the question correctly?
Okay, I picked the wrong questions.
So maybe, if I understand it correctly, if it's the outcome or the opportunity is the goal, it's between what you choose. What is the goal? Is it the opportunity or the outcome?
Okay, I always think that it should be both, but let's discuss it.
Well, looking from our perspective, opportunity at the moment is the goal, because there are not equal opportunities. For me, from my understanding, Miglė can talk from her own, the outcome will be there when there will be opportunities. Because I'm not sure if you will ever have no bias at all. It's probably psychologically impossible, I think. But as long as we are aware that we are biased and we have someone to talk, to check us or to discuss it with us, then it is possible to achieve opportunity. Well, basically, I do think that our office will ever have job. I mean, we will never lack job because we are biased. And we have, laws that are difficult to come to, but the outcome will come there because, it is unbelievable. You would take educational sector and you look at the statistics and you know that I think 80% are women. Lithuanian statistics, I'm not familiar with other statistics. And you still know that from the rest of the statistics, the one who have managerial jobs, positions, like school masters, like the one that are named, are still 30, like 3 times more than of the percentages that is left are male. So there is something in that pattern. There is a very strange pattern in it. And it is strange not to ask the question why it is the way it is. There is a lot of statistics that says that there is a pattern. And yes, women do think of themselves as less able, less something, more for family, more for insight. So when we go to the same position, it is statistically proved. We ask for this less payment for the same job because we think as females, usually they think they will not get the same, and they cannot ask for more because they will not get it. They are not worth it. The statistics also shows that if you put two CVs at the same and you don't put gender on it, and it's usually there will be a higher qualification taken out of it. But whenever you put gender in it, then male get more. And it's not usually not always of the same qualification. So it's it's pure statistics. Facts.
I just want to add to this. So, from a recruitment standpoint, there are options for businesses to be more diverse at the very beginning. So, Karolina was mentioning the Amazon's scandal of the screening. So, screening is the very first screening when someone applies, and then the person or a bot or a system either rejects the person or says, "Hey, let's go into the next stage," right? So, basically, there are ATSs, which is applicant tracking system. It's the system that helps recruitment teams and the hiring managers manage the process. They have the capacity, some of them, to, for example, to anonymize the names, gender, anything that can tell, like, the years of your education. I always say hide that from your LinkedIn, hide that from your CVs. That gives away how old you are, right? This is also, not gonna go well into your kind of advantage. So also there are LinkedIn plugins that can turn everyone's profile photo into a dog or a cat photo, for example, right? Those solutions are out there. Sometimes it's difficult to implement, but at the end of the day, we all of us here in the room are biased to some extent. We can't deny that. It's just normal, it's human nature, because whenever we meet a person or we see a situation, we will project what we think is going to happen based on our previous experience. That's just how it is. I hope that you guys know from data you look differently, but that's just natural. Even if we remove this, AI and all machine learning, in our normal conversations we have that, right? So yeah, I think that when it comes to women, because we're focusing a lot on women today, I would love to see more women who are not afraid of actually standing in their own power and saying, hey, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to, to do what is necessary, but I want to be not like the problem that I also noticed that we talk about women, that they have to be better. The challenge is that they not have to be better against men. There's a huge competition against women internally in all the companies, because if, for example, a woman gets into tech and there's another woman in tech, now they're going to be compared all the time. That's what you automatically think. But if you just join forces, and then you can do and you can give more to other women who can actually get into the industry or into a team, because only this is how we can actually make the change, rather than, I will be now bad to all the other women. That also happens in every single industry as well. So, yeah.
Okay, and thank you so much for everyone. And my biggest fear for this evening happened, that we will slip to male-female topic because I'm always saying that it's so much more, and I really hope and I wish for all of us to get back later on and talk about the broader diversity in the sense, and there is a very good question. Don't you think that AI and other models will be biased as long as people are? Shouldn't we first of all think about educating our generation? And I think that this meetup, and actually I suggested this topic as the attempt to, combine those two areas of, equality and ML, because as I mentioned, there are so many things that we can do right now. So I hope that we will get back to this topic later on, and I wish you, and I hope that at least like one thing to bring out of this meetup. If you have any questions and you posted the questions and those haven't been answered, then we have pizzas and we have refreshments, so keep that in mind and we can continue the conversation here.
Thank you very much, everyone. And I saw that one of the questions answered the other question over there, which is, do you think AI, and as long as people are there, and the future regulations, so as long as people are biased, regulation will not really help. It only helps in a certain way. But it has to be ground up overall. We have to be working on the grassroots level. Thank you very much for staying all along. It was a very interesting conversation. I wish there were 2 more hours to talk about it, because as Karolina mentioned, it's not just about gender, it's about many other things. As diverse as we are, there are so many factors that makes us diverse. So everything goes into the word diversity over here. The more you can think of, the more there will be an unending list of things. The only thing we can do is try to be inclusive and try to accept that we only know so much. There will be something unknown, and be careful about how we go about things. So, yeah, thanks for the great evening, great audience, great panel, great speakers. Thank you very much, and for giving up time. And we will be seeing each other possibly in September, and there might be a big event, Baltic Data Science Day. Possibly before or after that, we'll be meeting each other. Till then, enjoy your summer, and also now try to make the most out of the presence by networking and asking the questions you could not ask or did not have the time to get the answers to. Thank you very much.